kids. They usually have we don't have to
Total of what? Just these two things, right? Okay,
2.5.
that's what I'm saying. So what do we spend for one of these?
200.
Okay,
So yeah, our cash reserves are gonna go down.
right here.
No, that still seems like a lot.
And
It's 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Durkin.
Here.
Gray.
Yes, here.
Hale.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Here.
Wet.
Here. We'll say the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll take a moment of silence if they like. Take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Everyone's had a chance to review the previous minutes. If there are no additions or corrections, those stand approved as presented. Announce the visitors, the gentleman from the insurance renewals here.
Christian John.
There was no public comment sent in, so we move on to the office.
Actually, there was. I received a text and they noted that the ambulance was in the parade, but that we were throwing candy out the windows when we weren't supposed to. And the tongue-in-cheek remark was maybe they were trying to drum up a few customers. So I don't know if, were we not supposed to throw candy?
You're not supposed to.
I think,
Because it was noticed.
I do believe you're supposed to walk and hand out candy. I think that's got changed. I did not pass it on. So the crew, I didn't know they were buying candy initially, which was a nice gesture. But I didn't let them know that they should probably walk and hand out the candy.
Well, there was a, it was noticed, that's all I'm gonna say.
Last year, Kelvin, I asked him about that, because we put candy and stuff in bags and we're going along hanging, passing it out. And he was driving by and throwing stuff out. I said, why do you get to throw stuff out? He said, well, it's not a law. It's just a suggestion.
It just doesn't look good if it's not supposed to be.
But they had fires up last year. Did they have them up this year too to keep the crowd away?
I don't know. I was not at the Christmas parade, so I can't.
But yeah,
I'll make sure that if we pass out candy, we walk.
Move on to the officers report, the chief's report. Roy is on the way, but he was stuck in traffic.
Yeah, Roy got stuck in some traffic. He's on the way. He was coming from Columbia, so I'll take his position until he gets here. So we're starting, chief's report starts on page 3. For the station 3, we start off some kickoff meetings with Navigate, and we scheduled those meetings every 2 weeks starting December 5th. We also had architects were also present in that, so we kind of go on some preliminary drawings and things like that, kind of doing a checklist on that. For operations, call volume for November 2024, Pettis County was 8,583, and Windsor was 1,023. Nothing to report on any major equipment issues. Building and grounds, Station 2, the bedroom project was done, and Station 1, the awning project was completed. We actually had the contractor go back. There was some money and taping issues that I didn't think were satisfactory. So they actually came back already and redid that. So we're waiting on some paint. I talked to the gentleman from the cabinet builder. He took measurements today, getting that cabinet built and making it to spec as what we have in the other bedroom currently. And I believe one of the doors that came in was broken on corner. So new door was ordered. They have to finish that, and it's just gonna get replaced once it gets finished and everything like that. So, but everything else, the project looks great from what they've done so far. We did some regular preventive maintenances on some of the units, oil changes mainly. We did have that deer strike. I think Chief talked about that last board meeting. It is at WK for repairs. I did get a update on it. About 80% of the parts are in. They're still waiting on some more parts and they will start. So I don't believe we're gonna get it back by the end of this year, hopefully beginning of next year on that truck. So, mileages, you see those below. The transits are still pretty low on the mileage, but we just started implementing using them in the transfer rotation, so those should be going up over the next couple months, and hopefully it will keep some of those mileages on our box trucks down. On education, we've just been proceeding with the monthly competencies and mandatory quarterly training that's scheduled for December. The guys been doing some airway labs and stuff. And I want to kind of give a shout out to Kemps and Lamont Meats. They've been supplying us with some tracheas, so the guys can actually do the airway maneuvers on some live tissue, which is always a lot better than trying to do it on a dummy, you know. So. Next is the heat map. Nothing really has changed. You can see the majority, City of Sedalia. You have those other little spots in Lamont, Green Ridge, and then out there, that other spot is TT, where our Station 2 is at. So, for the Henry County heat map, majority of our calls happen in Windsor. So, the little dot down there, Clinton, that's a hospital where we take some transfers, and Green Ridge is also where we have some of those calls. Staffing update. Looks like we hired, I don't know, it looks like, I did the hiring, 3 new part-time EMTs. They're at various stages of the orientation process. I think one is nearing completion. The other ones are starting this month. Mr. Steve Watt, he's one of our captains right now. He submitted his notice of retirement effective at the end of the month, and I think the chief talked to you guys about that. We actually have 2 captains that are retiring by the end of this year. So, and that brings us to the awards banquet. And so it's an awards banquet plus retirement celebration. We planned that for December 29th at 1700 hours. It's going to be at the Moose Lodge. So all you gentlemen are welcome to join us. We're going to have some food and give out some awards and things like that. Bring your family if you want. We would appreciate it if you guys partake in that and celebrate those retirements with us. Unit updates, unit 9 and 13 and 14, they're all stocked and they're all in service. I think we finally got the last 2 pieces of the cradle point, which is the internet for unit 13 and 14 in, so hopefully we can get those installed here pretty quick and we should be all operational on all those new units that came in. So that's going to be a big help. Next, page 6 is our combined call volume, and really the most important number that I circled is our combined total call volume, which is going to be up in the green on the very top right hand. We're at 9,606 calls for the year to date, and if you go right below that, our last year's call volume was 9,548, so we are over our call volume for last year.
We'll easily be over 10,000 by the end of this month.
I think don't quote me, but I think we're at 9,800, somewhere around there. I wrote a report today, so we're about 9,800 as of today, so we should be.
But you attribute that to?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think you know, we had growth in the City of Sedalia. I think our number of population went up, and I think also our transfers kind of been up. I think we had an increase, I would say 15 to 20% of the patients that we take out of Bothwell and take to other hospitals. So that will be probably a good increase on that. So I think that's mainly it. We didn't have any increase of events or anything like that, increase in standby events where we maybe had additional patients there, so.
Would you happen to know if the Sedae Police Department has had a big increase in automobile accidents this year over last year?
I don't know. I can find out, and I think what would be nice to see maybe at the maybe on the January board meeting to kind of see do a breakdown, maybe on calls like MVCs,
Right.
train sports, and kind of see where those increases are. To kind of see where we at from last year to this year, and kind of see.
Just to try and uncover a trend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, establish a trend or something. So, but yeah, so we're over from last year, so far. And that is that, unless you guys have any other questions. That is it for the chief's report.
Any other questions on the chief's report?
Do you think any of that call volume has anything to do with the increase in aging population? Baby boomers would be about this time, right?
It could be, we can probably run on that report, maybe run a certain age demographics as well.
That's what I would like. Yeah, if we can look at age without looking at any other factors.
Interestingly, looks like Windsor's running just almost dead on to what they were last time.
Any other questions? Move on to payment of outstanding bills. Are there any questions on those? Questions on those? Take a motion to approve payment.
Does that include the central bank 13 on the credit card? That's,
What are you looking at?
that's great news. I know they got a charge of 1,036 and then they gave us half of that back.
Yes, that was something for the awards banquet, actually. We charged for 2 plaques. Then I told them to put a hold on one for a second to do some corrections on it. And they didn't want to do a hold, so they gave us a credit back for for one of the plaques. And there will actually be another debit. Since I did order, I went and made the changes and they debit us again the other half. So the total should be the same. It is unfortunately being split up between 2 board meetings. They didn't want to hold on to the credit on those for them.
For $518 a piece.
There's 2 each, one for the person to take home, and it's actually, I don't want to say too much because it's being recorded, but I will get with you. I don't want to ruin the surprise.
You should know.
So it's actually, is it 4 plaques?
It's 4 plaques total, yes. 4 total plaques. If that's okay, I'll discuss it once we're off the recording.
They spent their
As long
time
as it was in the budget.
Yes, sir.
serving the public and you're gonna ruin it.
It was budgeted under employee recognition.
Well, I know that we.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We have no unfinished business. Move on to new business, the insurance renewal, property and casualty.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We appreciate being able to come and present to you all each year. My name is Christian. I'm with the Mike Keith Insurance Firm. I see a lot of familiar faces here. So I've got renewal terms from your current company, which is Fire Plus. It's underwritten by Munich Re, which is a huge global company. Very strong financial stability. It's one of our premier fire and ambulance products. There are a handful of premier products in the state. I'll name the top 4 or 5. That would be Fire Plus. There's Fire Pack, that no longer does ambulances. VFIS, ESIP, and then Selective's kind of a new person on the block. We saw Selective come in primarily on the east side of the state, a couple of years ago, and they were like 50 cents on the dollar, and they wrote a whole bunch of business, and now they took a bunch of rate, took it all back, and now they're right back to where the people were before. So anytime we get competition from, I'll call them a newbie in the state, even though it may not be a brand new company, the only way to get critical mass in a state that you have to have premium dollars to offset losses is you gotta have volume. So most clients aren't gonna move from a company they've been with for 15 or 20 years unless you just give them an offer they can't refuse. And that's what they do. They come in, they buy a bunch of business, they raise the premium back up. I told you all that to say that the 5 most mature companies are all within, they're very similar in coverage and the pricing is very similar. So I got a little bit of market data to share with you. With the Fire Plus program, we've got an ambulance district in the state of Missouri that had a 24% increase this year. And they had an increase in revenue and they had an increase in runs, so the exposure went up. But we saw a 24% increase and that one renewed and we felt like it was fair given all the circumstances. We had another one that's not too far away. It went up 17%, which we felt like was pretty close to being in line. We just had one call us. Now those are accounts that we control. We had one call us that's currently written with VFIS and they had a 48% increase and a 5-year 29% loss ratio. So it was a really, really good account. And VFIS took a 48% increase. They went from 56,000 to 81,000. And they really didn't know why. Well, we're seeing, and I've heard this, we're seeing all ambulance companies that are doing ambulance insurance are taking rate. They're all increasing their rates because the ambulances cost more. Litigation, there's a new, I think I probably used the term with you. Last year I came and showed you guys that portfolio, a little document that showed like all the claims that were happening from the property side. Well, this year they're starting to talk, in addition to the property, the wind and hail, what they're calling, they used to call it social inflation. Now they're calling it legal abuse. And that's, does anybody here watch the Chiefs? Just at every commercial break, there's one specific guy that has more articles than anybody.
Yeah.
Or more advertisements than anybody, you know, that type. Now we need attorneys. We all need attorneys. We need attorneys to defend us. We need attorneys to do contracts. And if we get hurt really bad and the insurance companies make a mistake, we need an attorney to make them behave. Thank goodness they do the right thing most of the time, but sometimes we do need them. But there is an abuse going on. And I would imagine that most of you in here would agree or have seen something that looked like legal abuse.
Do you think that's because the institutions that are being litigated against tend to roll over and just let the insurance company have it?
So part of it, yes.
Short-term gain. We save this time around, but they're gonna catch us next year.
Part of it comes down to a business decision. So if that famous guy on TV sends a demand letter and the case has any merit at all, the insurance company is going to look at it and they're going to say, we could make this go away for $50,000, or we could defend it and win and end up spending $100,000 to $150,000 or $200,000. And if you get in front of a jury, nobody wants to go to a jury because they're very sympathetic toward spending the insurance company money. So it's become a business model.
So it's not just we can make this go away for 50,000, it's we can make this go away for 50,000 and make it back on next year's rate increase.
Well, I don't see it that much. It's not on you specifically. So yes and no. I want to say yes and no. Yes, but we don't do it to one, like they don't take a hammer straight to you and try to get it all back from you. They're spreading it out amongst everybody.
Right.
So yes, you're correct.
Okay.
We are all paying for it when people look at the legal system as a lot.
Just like shoplifting at Walmart.
Correct.
We all pay for it every time we go.
And then I reached out because we don't represent VFIS or ESIP or Selective, but I wanted to get a little bit of market data to share with you guys here tonight. So I went to a friend of ours that we actually work with. They're out of another state down south, and they represent 400 public entities across the country. They do represent VFIS and ESIP, and what he told me was they were seeing rate increases anywhere from 15 to 30% is what the going rate is. I told him what your renewal was, and he thought that was really good. So your insurance company came to us and said, we want a 15% rate increase. And then we got to add exposure on top of that. So exposure would be if we increase the building values. That's in addition to the 15%. Well, because your loss ratio is really good, and who was it that asked about auto claims? You had roughly $5,000 last year and around $6,000 this year. We're talking a few each year. So the auto losses are really good. Your folks are doing a good job. I know they've been investing in the training. Gloria, good job with the.
Justin does all the training, so
Some
you
nice
guys get
work.
the kudos. right
If we could get the deer to cooperate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I've talked to Jamie, you know, we've in the past been able to co-op with some counties on brush guards. But if you're trading out vehicles, or the ones for your all's vehicles are really expensive, you know, you can get them for around $2,000 for an Explorer or a Charger or whatever they're driving. And that's worked really well for the counties that are out patrolling. And the ones they have today, it used to be you put a brush guard in the front, it was basically just an ornament. And you hit a deer and it would just cave the front end of your car in. Well, now they make them where there's 4 points and the deer will bounce off, and it makes a big difference. But when they're $10,000 to $15,000 pop, that's a different story. $2,000, a little easier to manage. Okay, how much time do I have? I promise I'm not going to stand up here and try to talk all night long, but I think there's a lot to go over here. So we went to market this year, and I sat down with your team a few months ago. We went to one other company called Moperm, and we've looked at them in the past. But the quote just came in today. I wish we would have had it last week and we could have put it in your all's packets. I'm sorry it didn't come in, but I'm glad we waited because it's interesting.
I'm gonna say, Christian, you're always the man of last minutes. We wouldn't have expected any other way.
Well, we worked up to the, I mean, we do our very best. Oh, same thing, sorry. Who else needs a copy? You? And Justin, you want a copy? Thank you. All right, so this is the first overview. And the reason we put this page together is that it shows you your Fire Plus package. And then you have a completely separate company for your cyber liability, and then a completely different company for your crime. And I wanted to show you here. So on the left-hand side, you can see the different lines of coverage. You've got your 2024 annualized premium, the next column over. That's what it was last year. Then the middle column is the renewal with the same companies as if you weren't going to move and you were going to renew with Fire Plus. And then on the far side, you can see where Moperm came in. We were very surprised to see that kind of pricing, just the difference between them. We looked at Moperm for you guys back in 2020. It was late 19 for your 2020 renewal. It was a 25% difference. But at that time, everything you would be giving up, it didn't make sense. Like you all voted to stay with this program because it's a premier program. Moperm is a good company. They're a pool established in 1987. Hi, Roy. And just in time. I know you wouldn't want to miss my presentation. They were established in 1987 when public entities couldn't get insurance. And we've got some ambulance districts with Moperm. We usually go to Moperm when they get non-renewed out of one of our premier programs. But that's not the case that we're in this year. Like, you guys have really good losses. You've got what I would consider a competitive renewal based on what we know in the industry. But there's a big difference in the pricing between what MoPerm's offering this year and what your renewal is from Fire Plus. We've got one ambulance district that's not too far away, and they're a fairly good-sized district. And we wrote them with MoPerm out of necessity a couple years ago. They had a large auto claim, and the very next year they went up 36%, about $30,000. But you know, they had a $300,000 loss. So I mean, it's justifiable. So if you guys want to flip, any questions about this page, this first page? Is this helpful to look at? Kind of looking at where you were, where you're at, and what options you got. You want to go to the next page? It's got lots of highlighting on it. So the highlighted areas are going to be areas that are improved coverage. So on the far left-hand column, you'll see all the different coverage, lines of coverage, and it talks about the deductibles. The next column over is going to be your expiring premium and deductibles. Then we've got your renewal premium and deductibles, and then the MoPerm option. I'm highlighting these things not to try to be like heavy-handed on which one I think is the better option, but it's important for you to know if you do make a decision to go with the less expensive options, where the differences are. And I want to go through each one of these if you don't mind. So there's two primary things that impact premium: rate and exposure. As the exposure goes up, like we talked about, building values go up, you're paying for more because you're getting more. You add more trucks, so you're going to pay more for those, for the premium. The rate is when the insurance companies are paying more claims than they expected, and they have to charge more rate per 100 in order to stay solvent. So if you look in that first section at the top, that's the property. You can see the property increase with inflation, and we might have increased a couple values after our meeting back in September. The deductible of 500 versus the deductible with MoPerm of 1,000. Not a big deal. The next one, you've got guaranteed, that's what GRC stands for, guaranteed building and business personal property. That means if we put a value on a building, it's only for a rating basis. So if we insure this building, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but if we insured this building for $350,000 and it costs $600 at the time of loss to rebuild it, the program you currently have is going to rebuild it for $600,000. They're going to make you whole. It's a guaranteed replacement. MoPerm has replacement costs, so they would only go up to the amount that we've put on the policy. So if we listed $350, you get $350, but that's standard. You're in a premier program. The deductible on flood, you currently have a $1,000 deductible, probably not a huge exposure for you guys. You can see MoPerm's got a $25,000 deductible. Earthquake, you have a 5% deductible. That would be 5% of the damaged building. MoPerm has a $25,000 deductible. So it's probably, 25 is probably a better option there. The business income and extra expense, you currently have 500,000. MoPerm's offering 400. We could ask them to increase it for a little bit more money. Blanket portable equipment. You're going to see there again that GRC, guaranteed replacement costs. So I think we have, Jim, you're going to have to help me. Was it 800,000 in portable equipment?
This is 850.
Okay, 850,000 in portable equipment. If at the time of loss, the cost of Band-Aids and gauze goes way up, I'm kidding, and it ends up being $1 million. This company's going to pay $1 million. With MoPerm, you're going to get the limit that you've paid. You can see the deductibles are just a little bit different, 500 versus 1,000, not a huge deal. Rented and leased borrowed equipment, you've got replacement cost or $10,000, it's not available with MoPerm. You go down to the next section. This is one of the differences that MoPerm has. They have an unlimited aggregate. So you could have a $2 million claim every day for the whole policy period, and they will keep paying. Where most companies have a cap or an aggregate, the most they'll pay in any 1 year. The general liability with your current program, you see that 1 million plus excess. The reason I put the plus excess on there is because we actually have $5 million in liability, and MoPerm only offers $2 million, and you cannot buy any more. And they will not allow us to go out. We've never tried it, defied them to try it, but they say they will not allow you to go buy an umbrella that will go over this program. They only want to offer what sovereign immunity allows. The reason we've done 5 million for as many years as I've been working in the insurance business is because the entity is protected by sovereign immunity, but your personnel is not. So if your personnel gets named in a suit for, you're talking about the trait or the procedures, if they do something wrong and they're found guilty and they owe whatever it is that the judge says they owe, is 2 million enough? Maybe. But we've seen them pay claims for $5 million. That's a big difference. If you want to scroll on down, you'll see the next highlighted area is the deductible. MoPerm's got a $1,000 deductible. You have a $0 deductible now. And then a nice thing that comes along with this Fire Plus product is they have a $10,000 reimbursement for line of duty death benefit, which is nice. That's the general liability. If you go down to the public officials, you'll see that public officials, there's that 1 million plus excess. The excess is 4 million, so you have a total of $5 million if the board gets sued. Where with MoPerm, you've got $2 million. Same thing under the employment practices. If for some reason you find yourself with a $5 million claim, you've got $5 million worth of coverage under your current program, MoPerm will only go to $2 million. And then I've highlighted the excess, which is something that you can't get through MoPerm. And then under the auto, any given auto claim, you've got $5 million of liability, where with MoPerm, you can only get $2 million of liability. The medical payments is a little bit better. The uninsured and underinsured motorists. So that's if your personnel are driving to the scene or back or whatever they're doing in the vehicle and they get hit by someone with minimum limits or no insurance. This provides them, in addition to work comp, up to $1 million of coverage if they need it. MoPerm limits it at $50,000, and it's only for uninsured motorists, not the person out there with minimum limits. And then the last one, primary autos. This is more of a fire department, I believe, and maybe one of you guys can tell me otherwise, but when the fireman gets toned out, he hops in his personal car and goes to the scene of the accident. This policy can take over and pay for his damages to his vehicle. Most companies don't do that. It's just an enhancement with this program. But when you get to the bottom line, that is a significant difference. I was anticipating it. Well, it's really hard to anticipate what they're going to use on their pricing. Sometimes we go to them and they're sky high. They're 50% high on an account. Sometimes they do this. I know it doesn't make your all's decision easier because there's such a delta here, but I'm glad to have an option for you. Did what we talked about, does any of this, like everybody on board with the differences here? The biggest difference is going to be the liability limits and then the coverage for the personnel. Now, if you decided you wanted to go with MoPerm and now personnel has a maximum of 2 million, maybe, I don't know if there is or not, maybe there's like a group professional policy that we could buy to offer more limits. Or maybe they can go, we talked about this a little bit. I don't know if you had a chance to look into it at all, but I know like nurses, for instance, you can go buy, and it used to be $100 or $200 a year. A nurse could go buy an extra $1 million of liability for themselves. Mm-hmm. There may be something available like that for EMTs. We just never sold it. I'm not aware of it. But it would be something that if you guys choose to go with MoPerm, I would want to look into. And then at that point, I don't know, again, if it's a group product that you could buy for them, or if we just need to let them know and show them a path where they can get something reasonable if they choose to.
So we're sitting here looking at building another substation. Is that already figured into this, or if when that goes online, we're gonna get a mid-course adjustment? And it'll be at the same rate, we're just adding more exposure.
Correct. Yep, you are correct.
Okay,
So what,
that would happen no matter who we had.
correct.
Yeah.
So we could do some fast math here. Jamie, do you know what the new location ballpark estimated?
2 million. Whatever.
So if you were gonna look at the 4 million up here and that property line's 27,000, half of 27 is gonna be what? 13 and a half?
They don't
14,000?
take land cost into effect though, surely.
Yeah, we've got them. I mean,
Not
not
just,
just anyway.
they're
2
not,
million is just the building.
just for the building, okay, I mean, that's what I said, all that insures the building and contents, then that's.
Right, so the extra runs will count under the general liability line. We would add that to the general liability.
Okay.
Personnel, the payroll will go to the work comp that renews in April. But if we were just trying to figure out like fast math, what else would it cost? That $2 million building, I could back into the numbers here and say it's gonna cost you about $14,000-ish, somewhere around there.
And that starts the day we open the building.
As soon as you take possession of it.
Okay.
And then if there's more trucks to go in there, again, more personnel, there's gonna be a liability charge for that location. But I'd say the building's probably gonna be the biggest driver.
Because we'll just be redistributing a lot of it for other resources, but.
Really, by schedule though, I think we're not going in till 26.
I understand, but if it happened on December 1,
Yeah.
we would have to pay 1 month of, that's where I'm at. Okay. Thank you.
So there's a couple more things. And again, I'm not trying to discourage you from the MOPRM option. I just want to be very clear as to what is and isn't covered by that product. So personal use of autos is a big no-no with MOPRM. And I just text my team member because that parade thing, I wanted to see. Because they have odd rules sometimes. So the response was, you can participate in a parade, but you can't have anyone other than an employee in the vehicle. Probably not a big deal. We had a library insured with MOPRM, and they had a little Halloween pumpkin carving event for the kids, where they get the little coping saw thing, where it's a million cuts to get they didn't want anything to do with it, because they heard pumpkin carving, and they're thinking, Friday the 13th. So we sometimes have to talk to them about, okay, this is what the exposure really is. Their mindset is, if it's not in the furtherance of the district or the utility or the entity, we don't want anything to do with it. So personal use of autos. If anybody's provided an auto full-time, any of your chiefs have a full-time vehicle that they can drive, they don't want a single person in there. They don't want you using it for personal use. That's on the application. I can't remember how we answered that question. But if that's something that you want to provide going forward, we're gonna have to work around that. We'll have to make some special provisions or make some special rules within the organization. And then the last thing was, Fire Plus is currently covering the cost of your Fire Plus Academy, which is what Flo's been using, or Justin, excuse me, has been using. And I hope that's working out okay for you. You can get your CE credits through it. Yeah. That would go away. MOPRM doesn't offer that. But it's only a $7,500 difference. When we're looking at the difference on the page here, you can buy several of those services. So based on how you guys are feeling about any one of these, there's enough of a difference that it would be, I think it would be a fine decision to go with MOPRM. You're giving up some coverage, but for the amount of difference, if it was a 25% difference again, I'd probably be strongly recommending Fire Plus. But ultimately, it's your all's decision. based on which direction you want to go. I've got schedules behind it. So I've got a full set of MOPERM schedules, which is the autos, equipment, and the buildings, and I've got Fire Plus schedules behind here. They should be very similar, they're just a little bit different format. Does anybody have any?
You talk about the uninsured, underinsured motorist part on MOPERM. So like that accident we had, it was somebody that had the lowest liability there. How does that work?
So it's going to be for the bodily injury of the injured workers. So you currently have work comp, but work comp does have its limitations. And if work comp wasn't enough, that's where we could tap into the uninsured and underinsured motorists up to $1 million. So the maximum,
This is 50,000 on
right,
MOPERM.
under MOPERM.
Okay.
And there's other companies that have a maximum of 50,000. I like the $1 million if we can get it. But when you got $1 million, the attorneys go for $1 million, you end up paying $1 million, then you got to suffer through the claim, you know, the 5 years of having that claim on there. But I just try to keep thinking about, you know, what's best for that individual who's working for the district. But 50,000 is also common if you ended up going that way. On the work comp side, there's a maximum. It looks kind of like that muscular system over there. We call it the meat chart. And they assign a value to every body part. And when you look at that meat chart, it'll show 400 right in the middle. That's 400 weeks is the maximum that they'll pay for indemnity, which is basically $440,000. So if you are completely like quadriplegic, you would get a check from work comp, I think, for around $440,000. Now they'll keep paying your weekly wage for the rest of your life, but it does not increase for inflation. So I've seen a claim where a woman worked at a gas station back in the 90s and she was probably making $4 an hour. And I saw her, she's still getting paid on that claim, and she's getting about $200 a week because back then that's what she was making. Work comp does not increase with inflation. That would be another reason where this higher uninsured and underinsured motorists would come into play.
Another question, on the schedule of covered automobiles on MOPERM, so like the pickups and the Tahoes, there's not a stated value listed in here?
They probably won't do that on, and we just got this, so sorry, I don't have all the answers. I can get the answers. I'm guessing on the private passenger type vehicles, they're only gonna do actual cash value. And then the apparatus, they're gonna do the stated value on that, which is a unique term, stated value. It's either stated amount or agreed value. MOPERM smashed the two of them together to make sure everybody was confused. So it's stated value, but basically it's supposed to work similar to what you have now. So in 2019, you guys got T-boned and it was like $197,000 claim because you had a $200,000 ambulance and your company bought you a new one or, you know, paid up to the value that we had. We've built the MOPERM proposal to look very similar to that, but it may not apply to the private passenger. I'd have to find out. If it's not on there, I'd say they don't do it.
So actual cash value is like what it's worth today.
Market value. Like what you would expect if you wrecked your own car. You guys are a quiet group.
Well, I figured out the cost per day. And on the higher one, it was $709 a day. And on the MOPERM, it was $297. And that, but with insurance, you know, I don't know if you know it, I sold insurance with Farmers Insurance Group for 7 years. And I'd have clients come in that had out of Walnut Hills, beautiful home, pool, all this stuff. And they just wanted 25, 50, 10 on their cars because they didn't want to pay any more than that. Boy, what a risk they were taking. And you know, all that training drummed into me, I'm thinking, even though it costs more, well, if you ever need it, it's,
I know.
and it can save your rear end.
That's what happened to me in that wreck next year. That car was just minimum insurance, so my insurance had to kick in for the rest.
That still wouldn't probably enough.
Barely.
Really?
Well, I had the underinsured and underinsured.
So I just want to revisit two things just so I'm clear and understand. So if a building goes down, they'll only, MoPerm would only pay for whatever is stated and not the actual cost to rebuild.
That is very common, like your, I want to say your homeowner's policy, but you
Right.
probably all have a provision that goes over, 150%. MoPerm had a 115% margin clause at one time. I think they took that away in this last year. But yes, it's intended to only pay what you've scheduled. So if you've scheduled 350, that's all you should expect to get. With Fire Plus, if it's 500, if it's 600, we're gonna pay whatever it takes to put you back and make you whole again on both the building and the contents.
Well, we know how much lug nuts cost, so I can't imagine what building a new building would be.
Well, and if it's a tornado and it devastates an area, and maybe quite a few places in Missouri, the next day lumber and everything else goes up, and it's gonna cost a whole lot more to replace it.
Yeah. Guaranteed replacement cost through the COVID was a big selling feature because nobody knew what it was gonna cost.
Good hailstorm will raise shingle prices at Menards.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so can we revisit one other thing? The personnel, not part of the sovereignty piece that you went over, can you go over that one more time?
Yes, so sovereign immunity is an immunity for all public entities in the state of Missouri. You're immune from liability except for two cases. If you have a known dangerous premises. So I don't know if you are responsible for the sidewalk, but we'll just use it for example. And it's either broken or there's nothing on there or it's got a big, and somebody hurts himself on it and you know about it. Well, you're gonna be held responsible. Well, let's use I use the playground, the monkey bars. If you don't know the monkey bars are broken and Timmy falls off the monkey bars, then you're not responsible. If somebody calls and says, hey, the monkey bars are broken, and 2 weeks later you still haven't fixed it and Timmy falls off, you're gonna be paying a claim. And operating an automobile. So you can't be immune from liability out of operating an automobile. So those are the two situations. So when you have an EMT that's responding and the EMT themselves does not fall under sovereign immunity, it's only for the entity. So we had a really bad claim, the east side of the state, and it was 2013. They finally settled in 2016 for $5 million. And it was a child, and they did the process wrong. And there's discretionary and ministerial duties, and they did not follow the ministerial duties. And the attorney went back and showed everything, and it was a tragic situation. They paid $5 million for that claim. With MoPerm, you would get $2 million. Would that be enough to make the family whole and satisfied? Maybe. But we've just offered the $5 million over the years because of situations like that. And if you chose to go with MoPerm, then again, I would want to see if there's something out there that the individuals could maybe take it upon themselves if they want to, if it's relatively inexpensive, or if there's a group option. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just looking, I know our next thing is the budget, but just to muddy the waters for everybody. If we ever did have to come out of pocket for something that wasn't covered, we only have, what, 6 months revenue to work off of? Just something.
Is the premium on here, do we have it in is it in the budget to pay for that premium?
About $500. about $500 more than what we had originally.
We have a lot of assets. Ambulances are expensive.
Yeah, we learned that, and hard to come by.
And it's not ours, it's the taxpayers. So we're insuring the taxpayers.
We're also running 10,000 calls a year now.
I know.
And we used to run
That's a lot of.
6 or 7,
That's a lot of exposure.
so we have not only more.
Yeah.
Dollars worth of equipment, we're putting it in harm's way. Have to count backing into the door over here. Yeah,
Well, and also the fact that you were speaking of at the beginning, about, what was the term you used, about legal,
Oh, legal abuse.
yeah, I mean, frivolous lawsuits are going up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
they must pay well.
Yeah, we just had an HR training, and a gal that came, we flew her in from Pennsylvania to go to the MAC conference. We work with her directly. We flew her in, went to the MAC conference, and she came, did some HR training at the office, and both the sessions, she said it's every year, it's more than we've ever seen. You guys have been subject to some of that here over the years.
And our drivers are driving generally over the speed limit, but the people that they're trying to warn that they're coming with their signs on and stuff, and sometimes just don't pay any attention.
Well, that's the earbuds and cell phones.
I just said, they're too busy texting.
Yeah, hey, there's an ambulance behind me.
Guys, I want to be respectful of your time. I love what I do. I could sit here all night and talk to you guys about this stuff, but I know that's not on the agenda to spend that much time. Do you all have a direction that you want to go? And then we could look at these additional schedules, or you guys can review the schedules.
How soon you need a decision? Because we're not gonna meet again until January.
Yeah, we really need one tonight.
Okay.
I move we stay with the one we have.
I'm kind of leaning towards, just renewal, simple renewal. I don't know
I
how
second.
everybody else feels.
There's a motion and a second to continue with the current company.
Fire Plus.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Jimmy, we'll get you invoices, and I don't believe I need signatures on anything, but you know what, I am gonna need a couple signatures.
Those are cost you.
$149,000.
You're reading my mind.
So this is a statement of values. We've gone over these, Flo and Roy, with Jamie and I, looking at all these values. Again, they're just reading this is, and the signature that we read reads.
If we're over here, you know what's gonna happen next year.
Yeah, well, you don't wanna, I mean, we've got a lot of assets.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate your business.
Thank you.
Resolution 2024-07. Annual budget for 2025.
Any questions? You guys had these for a few weeks. You guys have any questions? You want to go through it line by line?
Yes, line by line. No.
You got till about 6 in the morning.
Pizza order or something.
Coffee.
I think.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't have anything major. Just out of curiosity, these are just a few little things. So the ambulance and vehicle maintenance, I know things are obviously going up. I think that's a good estimate, 71.
So it's just a slight increase over last year.
Okay.
I mean, it's anybody's guess.
Right.
So it is a 7% increase over
Okay.
the 2024 projection.
And then the other one was, oxygen. We were thinking, or we were looking at something like getting some kind of contract or.
We have done that,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
It should be less than that number that's in the budget.
Awesome.
I calculated, I think it was gonna be close to 30,000 less,
Okay.
but that's the number I had
Right.
when this was done.
Exactly.
I'm still confused. This is my third time through this. I'm still confused at how we have a budget, how we're gonna spend our money, and then at the end of the year, we've gone over and under, we just change it to make our budget fit what we've done. So why have one for next year if we know we're just gonna adjust it to what we've got at the end of the year anyway?
State statute says we do.
So there's.
The state statute says we adjust it if we go over. It's all state statute. I mean, I think as an accountant, it's a good idea to have a budget, to have something to go off of and shoot towards.
For instance, let's look right here on page, uniforms. Right there, let's see.
What page are you on?
Well,
Oh, I didn't put page numbers, sorry, that's my bad.
it's at the top, under functional capacity testing, we go down uniforms, all right. The actual this year was 22,758.
No,
We
that
had-
was 2023.
Okay, 2023, this year it was 30,400, and we happened to hit it right on the money, right?
That's the projection that it was gonna be at budget, yes.
Okay, and so then we went from 22,000 to 30,000 in 1 year on uniforms. So that's like an $8,000 raise year over year, but we're only gonna bump it up 4, or was this an exceptional year for uniforms, or, I don't know, it's just wags, isn't it? Just wild ass guesses on.
No, so the uniforms are actually based on how many employees we have, and it's $400 per employee is how we
Okay,
budget.
so we're gonna go up, add a few employees, then you're estimating that,
Yes.
okay? All right. And the fuel costs, I know we budgeted more for fuel, that's because we have more vehicles, because fuel costs are likely going to hold steady or decline this year, but you never know.
And the call, you gotta increase the call volume, so that means more mileage,
Right.
you know?
So we're just,
I mean, the fuel is a 7% increase is what I put it as. And yeah, we have increased call volume, so we're driving more, use more fuel.
okay, so, but
Even
we're
if
not,
gas goes down.
but
our
whatever
gas
numbers
costs-
we put in here, we're not truly bound by them.
No, but we try and
Just a
You
guide.
know, we try to stick to them, but if there's something outside of our control, such as fuel costs that go up dramatically, that we have no, with oxygen, we had no.
But it's
control.
not a zero-sum game where you have to cut back in this line to pay more in that line, we just go to the
I mean,
reserves.
some things we do, some things if there is an increase in oxygen and we have to cut back, we can't cut back on medical supplies because that's not one place you can cut back, but we might cut back in something else further down the line. There might be some capital that doesn't happen or something else, but you know.
You've
time-
been in control of when we get into our new situation here with outside billing and stuff, how's that gonna help us to stay on track? We're just gonna have to monitor that.
Yeah, we'll still monitor it just like we do every month. I mean,
Just
these
won't have-
guys know, they'll say.
We just won't have the
"Hey."
firsthand knowledge that you provide us every
Yeah,
month.
so, but it'll still be there. But,
Okay.
well, these guys will say, hey, we need to do this. Is it in the, like, the handbook? We need to do the handbook revisions. Is this in the budget? I said, well, that specific thing wasn't in the budget, but if you think about it, it's legal and we still have money in the legal budget. So, yes,
Okay.
I think we're okay.
All right.
So, I mean, these guys are really good about paying attention
Is-
to what that budget says and trying to follow what we planned for. Now, there's things that always happen every year that weren't planned for, and that happens.
Okay, and some things that were planned for didn't happen.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah, exactly. We planned to get ambulances.
That's,
We were told we were gonna get ambulances. We didn't. So, yeah, there's both ways. It goes both ways.
thank you. So I do want to say something about the budget and, having spent almost my whole life in the accounting area and trying to budget going forward, especially at the beginning of the year, you always look at prior year's expenses and you can take your best guess. And I don't want to say guess is not the right word. There are theories and formulas and stuff you can do to try to budget for the next year. But as we had mentioned, that there are things that are out of our control, and you do your best to try to cover those things, but you can't. So a budget's still important for those things that we can control. So we stay under on those items, which as far as I know, we basically do. But some of the things where we went over budget this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of the things we went over budget for this year that we're gonna have to amend at the end of the year was the pay increase for employees, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah,
So-
labor negotiations.
so
finished After
negotiation-
the budget last year.
So negotiations after budget, that's something we can't,
That was in our control, but it was just the timing was.
the time, right? So I just wanted to say, looking at the things that we're gonna have to amend the budget for after the fact, I feel confident, or I feel good about, not that, if you understand what I'm saying, it's not anything neglect or us overspending, because all of us are very tight with this money. Obviously, that last decision we just had to make was very tough for all of us. So I just wanted to say that I feel good about the things that we're having to amend the budget for weren't anything where we were being out of control with stuff.
no abusive spending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right. So I would make a motion to approve this budget.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Got the update.
We have two things to discuss for review. First thing is the transit that we listed is currently on its way to Texas. It sold for $21,200. The other item is trying to sell another one. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so we have, the old Unit 13, which is one of the original box trucks that we bought. That was a truck we bought from Osage Ambulances. And the initial thought was to keep it around for a rehab unit, but since we bought the transits, we're getting a little tight on space. So we were just gonna see if we could put that on Gov Deal as well and just sell it and get some space for the transits, and we have a remount that's coming, so we're gonna need an extra garage. The ultimate plan is hopefully once the transits, we get kind of into what we built with our box trucks, our big trucks, maybe we can repurpose one of those transits as one of those rehab vehicles that we initially planned to use that truck for. I believe, and I would have to double check, but I think the transmission in truck is fairly new, is that right, Roy?
Yes, it is.
Fairly new, so I know normally we start them off at 7,500. I was gonna probably try to start the bid up a little higher, about 10 or 12,000 is what I was thinking. Just, I know there's been some years passed since that transmission, but I think the mileage is very minimal that we put on that transmission. So whoever buys that truck, it's basically a brand new transmission. I believe that was around the $4,000 or $5,000 range when you guys approved that initially. So I would say we do the 7,500 plus at least what the transmission cost was. So I would say about 10 to 12 grand is what I would say starting on that.
So do you need a motion to approve that?
Well, guidance, yeah, let's do a motion.
But at what amount?
What
amount? I know you said 10 or 12.
We can do 12, we can always run it for 12 and then go down, down to 10 if it doesn't get any bids, if you guys will go with that.
Yeah.
12,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021, section 9.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that for me?
Yes.
Great.